Last week in Michigan politics, the Michigan Democratic Party wraps up its endorsement convention, which candidates got those coveted party endorsements. And a lawsuit between the two front-running Republican gubernatorial candidates. Who is suing who and why? Plus, restoring the rapids on the Grand River is taking another step forward. What's next in this year's long project? I'm Cali Lichter, filling in for Josh Alburtus, and this is your 13 on Your Side rundown. We begin with new requirements for people who receive SNAP food benefits from the federal government. Supporters say they will help cut waste, but others say the changes will hurt people who are already struggling. According to the state, new mandates from what has been called the One Big Beautiful Bill are still being rolled out. More are on the way. 13 on Your Side political reporter Josh Alburtus explains.
These are human beings. These are our neighbors.
People who could face a big impact as state and local leaders figure out what to do with major changes out of Washington.
There's a lot of othering going on in this conversation right now. Like those are others that are going to be impacted by this, when really it is all of us that are going to be impacted.
Leaders referring to what could be the impact of what was dubbed the One Big Beautiful Bill. Spending and tax legislation, supporters also touted as a way to crack down on abuse of social safety nets. Many of its changes are still set to roll out, according to the state, and leaders fear changes like new work requirements on SNAP and Medicaid will stretch resources.
New work requirements are causing a strain on local Michigan works agencies.
Possible local impacts are a big concern for those like Wendy Randall. Should some lose their benefits, Randall signaled, they won't be the only ones to feel it.
In the healthcare realm, what we're really going to see is increasing healthcare costs overall, because when people lose their coverage, that means that there's going to be uncompensated care at our local health systems, and that uncompensated care will impact their ability to provide high-quality services for all of their patients.
In the end, these programs are administered through resources of the state, which saw its own budget standoff amongst lawmakers last year.
I'm optimistic that everyone will come to the table and negotiate a budget that protects access to health care and food assistance for Michiganders across the state.
Both the Democratic-controlled Senate and Republican-controlled House moving forward this past week with their ideas for the next budget. The chair of the powerful House Appropriations Committee saying last week, quote, "Our budget reflects a simple principle. We respect the hardworking taxpayers of Michigan. Families across our state are tightening their belts to afford groceries, gas, and everyday expenses. State government should be doing the same, not asking for more."
A major legal victory last week for the state of Michigan in the ongoing battle over Line 5 in the Straits of Mackinac. U.S. Supreme Court Justice Sonia Sotomayor authorized an opinion ruling that Enbridge waited too long, nearly 900 days, to try and move the state's lawsuit into federal court. The High Court rejected the request for a deadline extension, effectively sending the case back to the state court. The ruling is a win for Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel, who has long fought to keep the environmental dispute in a state venue. Michigan's three top elected officials are pushing back against a letter from the Justice Department requesting 2024 voting materials from Wayne County. The letter from the Assistant Attorney General was sent to the Wayne County Clerk on April 14th. It requested all absentee and provisional ballots, ballot receipts, and ballot envelopes from Wayne County's November 2024 election. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, Attorney General Dana Nessel, and Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, all Democrats, pushed back on the request in a joint statement, calling it as absurd as it is baseless. Benson, who is currently running for governor, shared a statement that said in part, "This is the Trump administration's latest attempt to interfere in our elections. Their goal is to sow seeds of doubt about the legitimacy of the results this November and in 2028. We won't be intimidated by these tactics. We stand with Wayne County to ensure we protect the integrity of our elections and the privacy of Michigan voters." Republican state senator and candidate for governor Eric Nesbitt also weighed in on the DOJ's probe into Wayne County elections, saying in part, if Gretchen Whitmer and Dana Nessel truly believe the election processes in Wayne County were flawless, they would welcome this Justice Department review with open arms instead of hiding behind frantic legal threats. Both Governor Whitmer and AG Nessel also shared statements that you can read on our website, 13onyourside.com. The two major parties are beginning to coalesce around major candidates ahead of the 2026 primary. Who the Democrats chose to back at last week's endorsement convention? That's next. It's less than 4 months until the primary elections in Michigan, and the Michigan Democratic Party has officially endorsed some candidates for major races in the state. Last weekend, delegates at the Michigan Democratic Party endorsement convention decided who the party is backing for those key statewide races. Leaders also heard from some big names in national politics as they hope to rally the party ahead of November. 13 on Your Side political reporter Josh Alburtus was in Detroit and has the details.
Michigan is inching back into the center of the political universe ahead of this year's all-important midterm elections. And this past weekend marked a big step toward November.
All the progress that we've made over the last 7 years doesn't mean anything if we go backward.
State Democrats held their endorsement convention in Detroit, part of a 2-day event at Huntington Place. Delegates on Sunday decided who the party would endorse for a number of key statewide offices, after leaders on Saturday called in some of Democrats' biggest names.
We are going to win the midterms, but it is not going to be easy.
I know this is the path back for the Democratic Party. Focus, talk like a normal human being, and lead by sharing your why.
Power players, campaigns working the floor, and even ski visors were among the sights over the weekend. In the end, Lieutenant Governor Garland Gilchrist clinched the party's nomination for Secretary of State. Washtenaw County Prosecutor Ellie Savitt got the nod for Attorney General. The field now looks to be more, albeit unofficially, set, as Republicans held their endorsement convention in late March. The state GOP endorsing Macomb County Clerk Anthony Ferlini for Secretary of State and Eaton County Prosecuting Attorney Doug Lloyd for Attorney General. Democrats this weekend looked to inject enthusiasm into a party out of power in Washington and hoping to cling to the power it has in Lansing.
Will you stand for our democracy? Will you stand to get out the vote? And will you stand together?
But Republicans in this battleground state have hoped to match any Democratic enthusiasm and might beg to differ on who will be the victor. The head of the state's GOP saying after their endorsement convention that they were, quote, proud of the slate of nominees endorsed at Saturday's convention, where over 2,100 enthusiastic and determined Republican Party delegates showed up to ensure we have strong candidates across the board in November.
These conventions also featured parties' endorsements for state Supreme Court seats and a number of education seats as well. Official nominating conventions are expected later this year. A former Republican Speaker of the Michigan House of Representatives is ending his bid to become governor. Tom Leonard made the announcement on Thursday. In his statement, he says he entered the race to put forth a bold, positive vision for our state's future. He adds that over the past several weeks, the campaign has grown increasingly negative, and that is not the type of campaign he wants to run. Leonard served in the Michigan House of Representatives from 2012 to 2019, serving as Speaker his last 2 years in office. The Perry Johnson campaign for governor of Michigan is suing Republican gubernatorial candidate John James and his campaign for allegedly violating Michigan election law. The Johnson campaign, that is also vying for the Republican nomination in the race, claims that James's campaign logo violates a law forbidding candidates from using campaign materials to imply that the candidate is an incumbent when they are not. Specifically, the lawsuit takes issue with 3 words on James's logo that simply states, quote, John James Governor. The lawsuit argues that the logo needs to include qualifying language like John James for Governor or elect John James Governor. A spokesperson for the Johnson campaign shared a statement with 13 on Your Side saying, quote, John James continues to refuse to participate in debates while he puts out TV ads and other marketing claiming to already be governor or the GOP nominee. His campaign is clearly breaking the law and needs to redo their marketing in a manner that is honest with the public. A spokesperson for the John James for Michigan campaign shared this statement with us in response to the lawsuit, quote, Perry Johnson's desperate ploy here will be just as successful as the $30 million he spent opposing President Trump. We wish him the best in getting on the ballot so he's eligible to debate John James in the future. Johnson and James are the two front runners in the race for the GOP nomination for governor. Other high-profile Republican candidates include former Michigan Attorney General Mike Cox and State Senator Eric Nesbitt. Last Monday was April 20th, which is considered by many to be a holiday for marijuana users. It's also the first holiday since a new state tax on recreational pot is officially being collected. 13 on your side's Jordan Hatfield has a look at whether the new 24% tax impacted 420 sales in West Michigan.
Happy 420.
April 20th is practically a state holiday here in West Michigan.
Definitely a celebration of the plant, celebration of the culture, celebration of the community.
With lines stretching out the dispensary doors in some spots. But the future of Michigan's cannabis industry is smoky, to say the least, as this 420 marks the first collection of the state's 24% wholesale tax payments effective January 1st. January's cannabis sales numbers saw a historic near 16% dip. February's numbers better, but not by much. March's numbers up from February, but still lower than this time last year. Back in March, one dispensary, Farmhouse Wellness, told me they had to raise prices.
We run fairly thin margins, always have. We want to be able to give customers who come in here a good deal. So all our costs went up. We had no choice.
But that hasn't been the case for every dispensary. Derek Van Way, general manager at Illinois-based Ascend Cannabis on Century Avenue in Grand Rapids, tells me that they haven't had to raise prices, though they are a bigger operation.
We're a pretty big player in the game.
With 7 dispensaries in Michigan alone. Van Way says while customers are concerned about the wholesale tax, they say they haven't passed on the costs. On 420, customers find a reason to roll up.
The holiday definitely attracts a lot of new customers, a lot of new faces, a lot of new friends, but the regulars come in.
Across town, another big name in the dispensary world, Cookies, remained steady, despite coming in during a lull in the action.
We always kind of joke here, it's like it always seems like people are hanging out somewhere together and then they're like, hey, let's all go to Cookies at the same time. Lots of pockets throughout the day.
And their customers keep coming back.
Business hasn't really seemed to drop down at all. We see the same people on a weekly, sometimes even a daily basis.
While Michigan's cannabis industry may have seen a bit of a come down to start the year, Van Way feels the highs are going to stay that way.
We have the best cannabis industry in the country, and we're not going anywhere.
The parking plan for the new Acrisure Amphitheater in downtown Grand Rapids was announced by city officials last week. Coming up, why they believe there isn't a need for new lots and how a new city website hopes to make parking easier. Grand Rapids City Commission candidate from the 3rd Ward, Richard Griffin, announced Thursday that he did not meet the signature requirements to make it on the ballot this November. Griffin was sentenced to life in prison in 1995 when he was 16 years old. But due to a 2012 Supreme Court decision, he became eligible for parole, which was granted to him in 2017. Griffin said he would focus on voter education and registration for the remainder of this electoral cycle. 13 on Your Side interviewed him last month, which you can watch on our website. The Acrisure Amphitheater in downtown Grand Rapids is getting ready for its first concert on May 15th. But there are still many questions about parking and whether there will be enough spaces. City officials addressed the issue last week, announcing there are new parking options. 13 on Your Side's Michael Martin was at the announcement with the details.
Our main focus has been to create a great experience for the people that are coming downtown.
The city of Grand Rapids is confident there will be plenty of space to park downtown once the new Acrisure Amphitheater opens May 15th.
But we're really looking forward to seeing all that activity on our street and in our shops.
Unveiling a new website Monday focused on making parking downtown a more straightforward endeavor.
So lots of different options here. This is a great single source of truth for folks to explore how they can interact with our transportation network.
Part of the new site, a reservation system where you can pay to lock in a parking space up to 3 months in advance.
I think people are traditionally used to parking right in front of the venue, and that may not be as possible here, but we're talking about 2 or 3 blocks away at most for most of these walks, and that just means you get to walk by all these great restaurants, shops, the public art.
On show nights, the Rapid will be adding ADA accessible shuttles from 5 designated lots and they'll keep their regular routes running 2 hours later.
Folks really, if they want to park farther away from the downtown core and come in and avoid possibly paying for parking, these are all free parking lots.
But according to the city's numbers, there is about 8,863 parking spaces open to the public within a half mile of the new amphitheater.
We just want to be clear, our analysis and data collection shows that there's plenty of capacity for this event venue within our parking system.
They are hopeful that the new amphitheater with a max capacity of 12,000 won't create the traffic nightmare some are expecting.
Despite all that, we're really intentionally focused on making sure we learn from each and every event night throughout this season so that we can adapt and change quickly.
With the help of state and federal grant fundings, Grand Rapids Public Schools now has new electric buses in service. Democratic Congresswoman Hillary Skolton was at the ribbon-cutting event last week. The district partnered with Dean Transportation to bring 15 new electric yellow school buses. They were paid for with more than $6 million in grant money from the EPA and state of Michigan. That funding also covers charging stations. The Lowell Charter Township Board is considering a temporary moratorium on a proposed Microsoft data center. An ordinance was introduced at last week's meeting. No action was taken. However, a second reading and full discussion will happen in May. Township planning officials say if a moratorium goes into effect without any zoning approval, which Microsoft does not have, the tech company's existing application could be withdrawn or frozen.
Although it is true data centers have been around forever, not of this scale or type, so a lot of municipalities are running into this, and that's why there's been a fair number of municipalities that have enacted these moratoria over the last few months.
He also said moratoriums in Michigan are common and are typically kept short about 6 months to increase the change they hold up legally. A new parking ramp could be built in East Grand Rapids near the high school. City commissioners approved a $100,000 agreement with East Grand Rapids Public Schools for preliminary design work for a 3-story ramp on Bagley Avenue. They also approved construction of temporary parking spaces on the east end of the track complex. Public input meetings on the project will be held this summer. The long-awaited project to restore the rapids on the Grand River is moving forward. Coming up, why an aging Grand River dam and invasive species are now at the center of the discussion. As the plan to restore the rapids on the Grand River in downtown Grand Rapids moves forward, an aging dam is now at the center of the project. Part of the Restore the Rapids plan includes tearing down the 6th Street Dam, which is being used to hold back invasive species. But before that happens, the Army Corps of Engineers wants to draft an environmental impact statement for the project. 13 on Your Side's Jordan Hatfield was at a meeting last Wednesday to get public input on what should replace the dam.
The 6th Street Dam is over 100 years old and starting to fall apart.
Typically, in a concrete structure, 100 years is the best you can hope to get out of it.
While it's no longer being used for its original purpose, supporting the local logging industry, the dam is an important line of defense, keeping out invasive and destructive sea lamprey that kill other fish in the Grand River.
They're not meant to prey on the smaller fish that the Grand River and the Great Lakes hold.
With the city looking to develop along the Grand River as part of the Restore the Rapids project, for this phase they want the public's input on where to put a new dam, either a very similar fixed crest dam or an adjustable barrier.
The adjustable barrier would allow for lowering of gates when the flows came up, but during sea lamprey season we would still have to maintain the blockage of sea lamprey.
A few dozen people came out to the public scoping session to learn more. One attendee, John Jimenez, wants a commitment that a new dam won't impact the river or affect the local economy upstream.
If it's an adjustable dam that will allow the water flow to be varied depending on season and conditions, then the issue is, will upstream interest be left high and dry, or will they be protected?
Jordan Friedsma, on the other hand, worries that this new infrastructure is not addressing other current issues.
those high water levels are something that the Army Corps of Engineers really needs to consider as they're doing their design, and consider like what, not just 100-year floods, but like 500-year floods, 1,000-year floods, things that would seem out of proportion now, but could happen within the next 100 years, which is how long the 6th Street Dam has been in.
And that's the rundown for your week in Michigan politics. Be sure to keep up with all the top political stories of the day, both on air and online at 13underside.com.